He's been on literally dozens and dozens of movies, TV shows. Of course, one of the big stars on the X-Files and the lone gunman. And he's making a documentary called The Truth Is Out There.
I was down in LA, so you guys came, and then we went to that dive bar.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes up to me and goes, "So does the studio pay you to hang out together?"
Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna promote the show. You know what? Here's the promotional campaign. You guys, here's $100. Go to a bunch of dive bars and hang out. Done and done, sir. Technically, it's easier to shop for me because you can always get me colored socks, regardless of the color. Just solid colored socks is all I've had since high school. Because I had...
If I were a spiritual therapist,
yeah,
I would do something with it. We live in pattern, Dean, so everything we do always shows everything we are.
Wow.
I know.
So everything I do shows everything I am?
Correct.
Wow.
At every given moment.
So then my pursuit of all these conspiracies...
Yes.
Then, or not pursuit, I mean, it was on a TV show,
Yeah.
so it kind of came to me. That is then reflecting who I am.
Did the show come to you, or was that your psyche finding the show that wanted to find you?
Wow.
Greatest, the funniest of all of them. Here's Dean Hagelin.
Watch your step off the curb. I was with an improv comedy group called Vancouver Theatre Sports League. 35 to 40 improvisers that would play improv games against each other. That was wildly successful in this town. It had an operating budget of about $1.7 million. So every time I need the next word in the sentence, I will tap you on the shoulder. So for instance, I'll say, "Boy, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go to the fridge and have a
Sandwich.
A sandwich, that's right." The joy of improv is that you kind of say yes to everything. There's no blocking and no wimping. The only way to kill a cockroach is by
Autoerotic asphyxiation.
autoerotic asphyxiation. Wait right there, cockroach, I won't be long. So what I've done in other facets of life, I've embraced everything that's come along and said yes, regardless of whether it was a good idea or not. We're doing a documentary on conspiracies. They start here. Hi, look it. This is month 1 of a 15-month odyssey. Mila. Akasha. Akasha, come on. This is my nephew, Mark. This is Mark's last day in Los Angeles. For today at 2 a.m.?
Yeah,
3 a.m.
2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah, you are flying to Lima, Peru.
Yeah.
For 6 months. And where's the Sacred Valley?
It sort of encompasses a whole area around Cusco.
Uh-huh.
It
Is Machu Picchu and...
includes Machu Picchu and a couple other ruins in the area.
And why are you going?
Learning Spanish, volunteering, and connecting with curanderos, or a shaman in the area. And she's just gonna teach me about the master plant ayahuasca. Basically, there's a chemical in it, DMT, or like dimethyltryptamine, that your pineal gland actually secretes in near-death experiences. So it's a full...
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No. I've heard it referred to as like 10 years of psychotherapy in a 8-hour, blast of super intense.
That is awesome.
When sort of asked by different anthropologists and stuff, like, so how'd you figure out mix the grass with the vine to get this to go or whatever? And they're like, well, we just asked it.
Welcome. DragonCon 2009, welcome to Atlanta. I'm not even in this shot. Hey, hello, I'm over here. Hey, Dick one. Start looking at the view. Here I am. Hi, welcome to Atlanta. It's over there. Is that you, Boba Fett? It's good to see you with the helmet off. That's, is that really hot in there? It's sufferable. I bet with a pantyhose on your head, too, that's not helping matters at all.
This is my 7th year of doing Dragon Con.
Light it up. Ow! And the comic book. And I'll write deny everything.
Hello, Dean.
Hello,
How's it going, big boy?
Spectacularly.
So
How
this
are you?
is not awkward at all, walking around all weekend with a documentary film crew in your pants, is it?
Not at all.
We're now going down. Good, man. How are you? Hey.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Hey, man.
If you remember me.
Yeah.
Seen you at San Diego Comic-Con a couple of times.
That's right. Hooray. Did I blink?
Hi, everybody. It's Saturday night at Dragon Con. There's a party on every floor. We are about to go visit some of these parties. Any floor, any door you see open, any one of the 3 hotels. You're most welcome, unless it needs an invite.
I'm Dean Haglin from the X-Files. Perhaps you remember me. I had long hair
Are
and
you
glasses.
the geek guy?
Yeah, I'm the geek guy.
So this is my room.
Your light's blinking. I think you're running out of battery. Oh. Hello. This thing on. And all the ships at sea. What's an object other than my cell phone? A zucchini.
Oh, Paris Hilton and a
Paris
zucchini
Hilton,
in Washington,
a zucchini
D.C.
at Washington, D.C. The story writes itself. But
I studied at RADA, Lambda, and all over stages across the world, but I've never worked with anybody quite so inappropriate as Mr. Dean Haglin.
okay, so what we've learned. She
Thought
She
was
perfect.
in
A
platonic.
way.
However,
Knowing
her
aptitude.
for
Zucchini.
fellatio.
I wrote this down back in Israel because this was our set list from Tel Aviv, and I went, oh, I'm going to keep this because that was so funny. We got a standing ovation on that one.
And they, half of them didn't even understand what we were saying. But how much do you love Israelis? I mean, here we are in Tel Aviv, and we hear this shawarma stand blows up, and you know,
yeah, 9
everyone,
blocks from our hotel.
9 blocks from the hotel, and I said to, you know, Odette, I was, God, you know, aren't you worried about this? He goes, we're Israeli. This happens every day. Shawarma stands blow up, things blow up, people die. It is life.
Yeah. I eventually caught the gator, and I choked him, which is bad, but he was tiny. So don't do that. Don't choke the tiny gator, which I think is a horrible metaphor. No. That's not what it means. Oh, look at that shirt. Where did you get that thing? I've never seen that before. That's pretty cool.
How was it for you to be on that show?
Well, it was great, actually. It was really a lot of fun. Yeah, question right in the front.
Your favorite episode?
Favorite episode?
What's your favorite episode?
The ones I was in. In your face. And of course, I played a conspiracy theorist, so I researched my role and got connected to a community of doomsdayers to non-believers and skeptics and all the people in between.
Right.
Oh yeah, the psychic dog in Missouri. No, I never did. I never found a thing about him.
But what did you find out about yourself during that experience?
Wow. Well, interesting. I actually found out I have a real capacity for duality. to hold both. You know, it's all alive.
Simultaneously?
Yeah,
And that's called the tension of the opposites.
So I was wondering if you had any good stories or anything you could relate to the Kennedy conspiracy.
The Kennedy assassination? Yeah, I heard it was suicide, actually. And the gun between his legs somehow. Yeah.
Too soon.
They spend all their life dealing with JFK.
Right.
Or, you know, other people are still trying to prove that Elvis is alive. You know, I mean, what is that? Why that instead of this?
Have you heard anything about conspiracy to suppress anything about quantum consciousness, if you know anything about that? And if not, you could maybe expand a little bit on the suppression of 0-point type energy.
Even within the conspiracy field, why are we drawn to particular stories if they're not a reflection of something in us?
Yeah, question.
Please forgive if you've had to talk about this 1,000 times before, but my wife and I 3 years ago bought the full DVD set of The Lone Gunman and the pilot episode. Could you comment on the pilot episode?
Oh, yes. The pilot episode.
You have talked about him and his wife buying that entire series before.
1,000 times. No, exactly. For those who don't know, the pilot episode, we stopped a plane from flying into the World Trade Center 8 months before it actually happened.
Hijack plane.
Yeah, and part of the whole storyline was that it was the government doing it to start a international war on terror, basically. If I'm technically gravitating towards one conspiracy over another, these then are reflecting my own personal demons?
Exactly.
Wow,
Yes.
that's fascinating. Hey, Gary Dean. Dean
Nice to
Haglund.
meet you.
I was just wondering, I know the K2 meter, but then what does yours do?
This is the Mel meter. What happens is, in a paranormal environment, you may encounter a situation where you have EMF, but you also have temperature change.
Temperature
Cold
changes.
spots.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
You know, this is also where we shot an X-Files episode, and the crew had to stay here, and the crew had ghost-like experiences, so they gave me this room, and I get in that room, and my God, I creeped out. I actually left the ship. The feeling was cold and clammy. There was nothing you could do to warm up in that room, even though it's only like 10 feet square. You're looking at the TV and you're going, I'm having trouble seeing that TV clearly. Like, there's some haze in here. There's something in this room just creeping the hell out of me. Yeah. Here you see some of the problems going on. Oh. You have a lot of this. The boats, actually. Remember, I always loved you. Oh, Jesus. Oh, it's 1920s music. No.
Because I've seen you with your short hair, but you cut it quite a while ago.
Yeah, I did a movie. I did this movie here called Spectres, and I cut my hair for that movie. Must be a lot of people who'd welcome the responsibility of a gift like yours.
Only because they don't know any better.
I'll tell you about this place. So it's a park now, but before it was part of the Ajax Nike missile protector shield of Los Angeles.
Good evening. There were 6 of us. 4 were pilots. 3 of us had been in Vietnam. All of us suspected or knew that there was more to know about UFOs than was being acknowledged by our government or the mainstream press. So in late November of 1991, we drove to Rachel, Nevada, a tiny town north of Las Vegas, to see for ourselves. Suddenly, from out of the darkness, a winged figure appeared on my left and banked directly towards my windshield. At the last possible moment, it veered and flew over the roof of my car. It was huge. And I suddenly realized, as my heart retraced its steps, that it must have been an owl. I was now very alert. And I remained that way until we left the blacktop and drove along a rutted dirt road to join the camper parked atop a mesa, just outside a ring of mountains that encircled Nellis Air Force Base, Area 51, Dreamland. Whatever you choose to call it, this is Mecca for those who have seen the light. My understanding is that you can't get within miles today of
Yeah.
where we were in 1991, simply because the Air Force has appropriated hundreds of thousands of acres. But when we were there, we engaged both the Nevada state troopers and the Air Force police, but they allowed us to stay there, and we were just behind the rim. As if on cue, from within the circle of mountains, a light slowly rose up and above the peaks and hung there in the night. The light was yellowish white, and its intensity and hue varied with its movement. It was perfectly silent throughout the experience.
How are you not motivated then to share this information of what you know or you know?
Well, I think there's a difference between empirical, verifiable evidence, other than, I didn't have a video camera with me in 1991.
Yeah.
I have it imprinted on my brain cells. After simply hanging, poised, suspended for a few moments, it began graceful and leisurely and rather unlikely maneuvers, first floating up and around and down, almost like a feather. What we saw has been documented in many, many articles. I mean, it's not a big secret. People have seen these for years. And as I remembered to breathe again, and thank my lucky stars for my good fortune, it moved once more and forever changed my belief systems. The behavior, the movement, the patterns were essentially like taking something out for a test drive. Can you remember past eye exams, that test where you sit with your chin in a cup, one eye covered, and you face a small screen, and you're supposed to push a button every time you see a light in the periphery of your vision, and that light flickers on and off at 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock? In its own way, that's what happened with the light, but it traveled across the entire sky.
They don't move through the fabric of space. They get out of space.
It was here, and then it was there. It didn't speed up or slow down. It just disappeared and then reappeared someplace else.
We're two fish right now, and we're gonna wag our tails and swim to the other side. But the water's gonna push on you, which makes you heavier. And the faster you go, the more that water's gonna push on you.
Right.
That's basically Einstein. The faster you go when you start approaching the speed of light, you never actually get there, because what you're pushing against, its mass increases your mass almost equal to it, and you're moving all of space at that velocity.
So how do I get out of space?
How do you get out of space? Just like the fish got out of the water, and you can now fly across the water way faster. Somebody figured out how to get out of space.
Who did?
We're two fish under the water, right?
Oh, no. I thought you meant a scientist actually.
No, I mean the aliens did.
Oh, I see.
And they don't move through space.
Right.
And that's why you don't see like an ocean liner UFO. It's flying past Jupiter now, and we can calculate when it's going to arrive at Earth. You never see that. They pop in, they're here, and then they leave.
I believe it was the 17th of July, 1954. I was 6 years of age. I was seated in the right-hand passenger seat of a 1953 Studebaker at a drive-in theater on the south side of St. Louis Airport. And suddenly, a disturbance started brewing in the theater.
At 7 years old, for real, I'm walking home from school in Berkeley, California, and I saw a flying saucer. People were pointing up in the sky.
A blood-red object. Its apparent size was equal to that of a full moon in the night sky, so a big object in the sky.
And it wasn't a dot like the moon is up there right now. No, this thing was close, and you could see the dome on the top, and it's shimmering.
And it suddenly accelerated from a dead stop, followed an S-shaped curve across the sky, and disappeared over the horizon over McDonnell Aircraft Corporation.
Are people pandemonium excited or
Yeah,
freaking
pounding
out?
on the neighbor's door saying, "There's a flying saucer out here. You better get out here and see it."
Wow.
There must have been hundreds or thousands of people, not only at the drive-in theater, but in surrounding communities who must have seen this object. And I've gone back to the St. Louis papers, Post-Dispatch and Globe Democrat. Not a single entry can I find. Let me say, Dean, parenthetically, that I'm doing exactly what I criticize other people for, namely talking about their sighting. What I want people to do is write about
it. Right.
And I couldn't talk about this sighting if I hadn't written it down and posted the report to the National UFO Reporting Center website.
I had a wonderful discussion with Edgar Mitchell. Test pilots, military pilots, Navy and Air Force pilots, these people that spend time in the air see these things.
We've been shooting down UFOs since Roswell.
Since Roswell, since 47.
The weapon is classified. I know who built it at Lockheed. Now, when you get into UFOs, you always arrive at Lockheed because they're bigger than Boeing in defense. They build the F-117, the B-2 bomber, the B-1 bomber, which is my
favorite airplane next to the flying saucers that we have.
Dean, hey, this is the second volume of my trilogy. Now I'm doing this historical trilogy, a War and Peace of UFOs, I guess. It's something of a reference or an encyclopedia. If you wanted to look up a particular case,
right?
It says, yeah, I wonder what Dolan says about it, and you could find it.
Phoenix lights.
Yeah.
Phoenix, Arizona. Where did it stop? Right in front of South Mountain. Guess who's down below? Goodyear, Arizona. Guess who's there? Lockheed Martin.
Oh.
There were not fewer than 5 objects over downtown Phoenix or surrounding areas on the 13th of March, 1997. The governor of that state, Fife Symington, saw one of them. For 10 years, he remained silent. It's very difficult to forgive that kind of behavior.
Gravity, regardless of weight, everything falls at the same speed.
Exactly.
But these north-north magnets, when you drop it 60 feet or higher, fall slower. What they do next at Lockheed is they say, okay, if that canceled out a little bit of gravity at only 60 feet, what happens if I drive nuclear-powered electromagnets with a lot of electricity and force them into each other?
Right.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. So we do a high electrical field and
super electrical electromagnets
that are in reverse poles.
That are opposite, same like poles.
Like poles, that's right.
But there's a lot of radiation, so that's why whenever you see these cases, like the Betty Cash case in Texas is where Lockheed is, the people all got radiation burns.
13 years ago, I was contacted by people inside the U.S. government. They said 3 things. They said, number 1, we know that UFOs are real.
A guy in Texas with his little dog running around, and this freaking flying saucer's right. You can see it through the fence in the backyard, and it's in the neighborhood. It's right there, and it's big.
Number 2, they said that we know that UFOs are what they appear to be, namely sophisticated craft under intelligent control.
Well, guess what happened? The guy's dog died 2 days later from radiation burns, and the guy and his whole family got really sick from radiation burns. Texas. Lockheed Martin.
And number 3, they said, we in the halls of government are somewhat worried about these things. They said, now you have posted material to your website that we find particularly interesting.
A majority of the UFOs reported then sound like they're our own experimental.
Okay, let's go to Stephenville.
And a mystery in the sky has a small Texas town buzzing. Residents there report seeing what they believe to be a UFO.
Big triangle. Farmers saw this thing, massive.
Yeah.
Now it's being escorted by fighter jets, which are Lockheed.
Right. F-16s, right?
And it's not shooting at it.
Right.
If we really thought they were aliens and it was a mile-wide ship, wouldn't we shoot it down so we could meet them?
Right.
They didn't shoot it, which means it's ours.
They were interested in those cases that allegedly would place a UFO in proximity to a commercial aircraft. This was 9 months after TWA 800 had gone down in July of '96.
Really, O'Hare in late '06 triggered it, as I see it. This amazing upsurge in news coverage on the topic.
A disc-shaped, metallic-appearing object had hovered over gate C-17 for at least 2 minutes that we can document.
Pilot saw it, people saw it. The
Pilot, first officer.
Air traffic controllers.
Possibly the air traffic controllers.
Oh, I thought one came forward, no? I'm not sure.
I have to disguise a little of the evidence we have because it could cost a person his job.
The consensus is generally, if you can avoid reporting something, you do that. Because the bureaucracy, the paperwork, the medical things, you go on, you're put on hold, you're suspended for a week or 2 or whatever. It's just so much aggravation. There's not a lot of value unless you're an attention whore.
The even more interesting question is, why is the press ignoring it? Why is the government not squaring with the American people on this subject?
This is too important a topic for a very small elite, a very small group of secret holders to hold on to. This is something that the entire human race needs to know about.
There's a great number of people dedicated to debunking and misdirecting and invalidating. I mean, so many mainstream scientists are very, very wary of speaking about things like this because you can lose your credibility, you can lose your funding.
The one thing you don't want to do on this planet is become a UFO investigator. It will take your time, your money, your sanity, and there's virtually no reward for it, save for the fact that hopefully someday this information will mean something to somebody, or even today.
There are government and military aspects to this conspiracy and it is a conspiracy, to hide the truth from the people. And so what does that say about the entire political system?
These documents are available. The government tasked Brookings, a group of professionals, and they were religious figures, economists, sociologists, medical figures, industrialists, politicians, and they said, what would be the likely outcome if we revealed to the general population that we are in concert with other beings? And I believe it was unanimous. You must not do that. If it is avoidable, you must not do that, because life as we know it will come to a screeching halt.
But is our political system so fragile that it'll fall apart with just the admission of...
Yes, I do. I think it is.
You really?
Yeah, I think our political system is that fragile.
I think the biggest challenge I have in running the National UFO Reporting Center is getting people to come forward.
It will be a story that you tell, and that's about all you can do, unless you manage somehow to film it or record it, and then they'll talk to about Photoshops or doing this with pie tints and tricks and cameras. But you will know. That's the important thing. And at some point, that certainty is enough. I don't need to have you understand or agree with me or believe. It doesn't matter to me. I know what I know. Just as I know what I know about war and combat. I can try to articulate it to you, but if you haven't been under fire, if you haven't taken lives and seen lives taken, it's an abstraction to you.
The American people are going to have to reassert their claim to this information that their government has available to it, and demand that these people open the file drawers, if you will, so we can have access to that information in those file folders, speaking figuratively, of course.
Do you see that coming?
No.
Our government might very well want to quiet you down. They might very well want to quiet you down. What is the value of running around like Chicken Little saying, hey, here I am?
But isn't there some sort of personal responsibility that once you have knowledge of this?
No, because my experience may well not be your experience. My reality is my reality.
Your experience is what you believe.
Right.
And some people don't even believe what they experience.
There's that.
Right. They're like, for example, when the Indians first saw the first ships, they didn't even see them because they didn't recognize the symbol of what that was.
Right. Magellan had to take them out in the boat until they touched it.
Look,
yeah,
this is something new.
Right.
I was worried about this UFO thing they were talking about doing in Florida, because I was looking at the list of people, and I know a lot of the names. I'm going, well, these guys are true believers, you know, that UFOs are aliens from another planet, other planets and things like that. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to be nice to them and all, but it's going to be difficult for at some point the conversation is going to stop with, well, I don't really believe what you believe. And then what do we say to each other? Sure is nice weather down here in Florida.
You could not tell me what I would be telling you. I would not accept it. I would never have believed what I saw in a million years if somebody told me. I don't care if you're a priest or a relative or it's someone I intimately trusted. You have to see it.
Right.
And then it's an epiphany. But unless you see it, you're accepting it on faith. I mean, there's a difference between someone to whom God has spoken and someone who's raised in the church and has a faith and prays every day. But to the person that God has spoken, there's no doubt about it.
He's had firsthand experience with Area 51, all sorts of top secret stuff, and yet doesn't feel compelled to have the responsibility to share that.
No, I don't feel a responsibility to do anything other than to remind people that their life is short and they should enjoy it and not piss it away. I have a responsibility to do that only because I know that.
Right.
And a lot of people tend to forget it or never knew it.
I was shocked to find he didn't feel compelled to reveal
Why were
that.
you shocked?
Well, I would think that if anybody has this information of...
They should share the information.
They should share the information.
But that's your path. That's not everybody's path.
That night, I took up my vigil once again in sleeping bag. It was bitterly cold, below 40 degrees, but the sky was crystal clear. And only one thing happened that night. As I lay back, remembering the names of the sharply defined constellations above, the stars suddenly disappeared. And as I rose in fear, the stars reappeared. And I defined the shape like a huge manta ray cruising along the ocean floor, that of a gliding, hunting owl.
But you don't believe there's any other alien life forms out in the universe?
Yeah, I don't think they're in giant saucer-shaped spaceships flying around Earth and, doing
so what are those things?
I'd seen 0 owls in 40 years. And within 24 hours, I'd had encounters with 2. Presumably different owls, but Who knows?
I would go in for the Jungian thing of them being an expression of some sort of cultural, collective unconscious kind of thing.
Really?
I discovered Jung's description of what are called screen memories. They are a protective device of our minds when faced with anomalous or upsetting images. And apparently, for whatever reason, owls tend to be a rather common screen memory, particularly for other entities, other beings. But what those owls represented to me, I have yet to remember.
So when are you gonna talk about the Grace, the alien Grace, man?
When right now?
What do you want to know?
Yeah, what do I want to know? I thought them and the Pleiades were fighting. Pleiadians, no? What do you know about the Greys?
The reptilians, the draconians, the Pleiadians, and then you got the other interdimensional creatures that aren't from other planets, but from inner dimensions.
Humans know him as Jesus when he walked the earth. He told me to call him Sananda. He preferred to be called Sananda. He is not about religion, he says. He is about unconditional love and living in the light of the source, meaning the creator. I was on a mothership one time when I had developed a brain tumor secondary to an accident I had had. I was healed of a brain tumor, and they would talk to me telepathically and tell me how to make these. These sculptures are meant to awaken people to their truth, who they are, not my truth, not your truth, their truth.
Right.
When you look at different species that have evolved, such as mammals, we turn into human form, why haven't the amphibians, insects, other types of species also turned into human form? Well, you've got the praying mantis aliens that they talk about. You've got the greys, which is possibly the amphibians similar to a dolphin that has evolved.
These are the Zumazettas that are aquatic, and they can live on land or in the ocean.
Then you got obviously the reptiles.
One time I had a friend that was over at my house, and in the middle of the night she got up and a reptilian was carrying me away. The reptilian telepathically said, how are you going to stop me? And she said, you can't stop me from loving you unconditionally. And that diffused him of his negative power, and he automatically took me down.
There's many different offsprings, and there's hybrids.
I'm part human and part ET.
Right.
But I am from an experiment that was done where they were trying to create human hybrids, the superhuman hybrids, to work with the government on top secret projects. There are an enormous amount of people who have been born into human bodies and their soul are from another world. And when the time comes, they will awaken and know exactly what they're meant to do.
Right.
I went up a shaft of light, and there were these angelic beings there, and I connected with them, and we developed a conversation. We could communicate telepathically with them.
Right.
And they told me that my mission was to be a channel for their music. 10 months after I first picked up the harp, I made my first recording, guided by the angels, and that music went on to go all over the world. I won a national award. I got a record deal with worldwide distribution. I went to the top of the charts. I was in every store across the country after only 10 months of playing. And this the angels told me was going to happen.
Why don't we just start with the examination of, I'll get out of the way.
You want me coming in and introducing myself and shaking hands, or you just
Sure, why
want to
not?
right
Come on in, introduce yourself, and then we'll do it as if you would be
right, so you know what you're going to say, right?
No.
Oh.
I thought you...
All right, you're gonna say that you think you have something in your arm.
He does think he has something.
He does think.
I
I do think I have something.
Yeah, don't even.
So then I will
You don't have
ask
to
you.
prep him. He already thinks he has something.
Okay, so let's just do the
Let's do
surgery
it.
first,
Yeah.
and we'll get right on with it.
And then I will interview
Okay.
after.
Then I'll ask you, well, do you have any idea exactly where it is? And then you'll point to a spot. And
Yeah.
then I'll do a couple.
Give him as if he was just a regular patient. Don't worry.
Count me down.
We're going. We're
3, 2,
rolling.
1, go.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lear.
Lyle Scosi, pleasure. Thank
Hi,
you.
Lyle.
Thank you for seeing me.
I feel a little lump here. How long has it been here?
About, let's see, maybe 1980, early 80s.
That's very interesting. Has it gotten bigger?
No, it hasn't changed in size.
Lyle is kind of a typical case.
That thing in his arm, is that a typical spot where?
Actually, I've had 3 or actually 4 that have come from the arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I get asked quite often, as to why they would put them in any particular place. If you apply some human logic, and you're doing this in mass over a worldwide area,
yeah,
you want to do your thing, you do it quick, get in, get out.
There are a wide range of speakers here that talk about this subject from different angles, and I think that's important. You can come at it through an historical perspective.
The first suspected alien object was in 1995.
95. Wow.
And that I only did for amusement purposes.
Your amusement? My amusement. Yeah.
I said, well, I'll donate the time.
Yeah.
And I'll take this out so we can make a big funny out of this whole thing. I said, I thought this is the biggest bag of nonsense in the world.
Is that right? Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Well, by the time I had gotten into it, it was already an accepted thing. Yes, abductions go on. But again, back to my personal beliefs, it's still quite a stretch from somebody driving a machine in the atmosphere and abducting you, and on top of that, sticking something in your body which you had absolutely no memory of. Then when we finally clamped it and took out this thing, we said, my God, I've never seen anything like this. Here was this very strange T-shaped thing that was wrapped in this very tight, shiny, biological cocoon. And of course, we were very curious to see what was inside, So I picked up a scalpel blade and I tried to cut through it. Couldn't cut through it. The metals that come out of these individuals contain things like rare earth elements like iridium. Mm-hmm. And we found one that had one isotope of uranium, which was 238, and a whole list of rare earth elements, some which don't even occur here on the Earth.
You can come at it through a kind of sort of quasi-religious way.
Yeah, I was invited to come to a group that was doing a shamanic ceremony. The focal point of it was drinking the ayahuasca tea from the Amazon basin. All of a sudden I popped through, I broke through some sort of a membrane or a veil of some sort. And I popped through, and all of a sudden, to my astonishment, I was standing on a spaceship with 2 Zeta Reticulans in front of me, or Greys. There were red lights flashing and warning sirens going on. Like everything was on high alert.
Red alert?
Yeah, red alert. I was like, wow, what's going on here?
Of course, one of the most startling things we found on this last case is that this biological coating that I was telling you about is not applied to the metal in any form.
Really?
It's growing out of the metal. If you could remanufacture this same material that this metal is exuding, you could wrap a kidney or a heart or any human organ, put it in the body, and the patient would never again have to take any anti-rejection medication because there is no
rejection.
There is no inflammation around these objects.
An energetic blast or tsunami is heading our way right now, and it's coming at us faster than the speed of light, and it is going to arrive sometime around 2012. That's what they told me.
We also know now that some of them put out radio frequencies.
Oh, right.
And that one of these radio frequencies we found was a deep space communication frequency.
All these roads lead to the same place, which is that there is a power structure that is on this planet. It has been for a long time.
Abduction is happening all over the world on a worldwide basis. And you have all these people describing basically the same entities with little differences depending upon where you go. And then to find out that some of these people have objects in their body undoubtedly put in for some purpose.
Now, whether or not there's a deep, dark boardroom of guys who meet to maintain it, that's a whole nother can of worms. Right. But the fact is that there is a power structure, and more of the world's power is falling into fewer and fewer hands.
I was with Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club. He's telling everybody that the crash at Roswell was a real extraterrestrial event with the crash of an extraterrestrial vehicle and its crew. He quotes the source of his information that says, high up within the Pentagon. I come up and I say, look, we've done surgeries on abductees, we've moved these objects, and here's what we got. About 20% of what he had to say got out on national television, and about 0% of what I had to say got out.
Pretend that the president were to get on television and say the UFO phenomenon apparently is real and apparently is alien. Okay, well, there's a lot of follow-up questions here, aren't there? One will be,
Sir?
Are abductions real? Suddenly abductions don't sound so crazy. But another question will be, how have you been able to keep this secret for over 60 years? That's going to get into issues of media manipulation, political manipulation of our system, the manipulation of the academic community.
Because whatever field of study you're in, there's always these suppressed or repressed truths that either was done by design or just done by knowledge filtering. It happens. It's just a way of things.
And I was ultimately led to the work of a Dr. Paul Laviolette. He came up with a theory in 1983 about galactic superwave pulsations. And his theory was that the last galactic superwave was responsible for the mass extinction, which took out the mastodons and the saber-toothed tigers about 12,000 years ago. But he was able to go to Norway a few years back and drill into the ice cores, and they drilled down about 12,000 years ago, and sure enough, they found a radioactive isotope that is not from this planet, it's from off-planet, and it was in the ice. So this completely corroborated his theory.
It's a very hopeful position, in fact. It's creative, it's imaginative. Aren't the conspiracy theorists very imaginative?
Yes, they are.
Oh my God!
Some have quite the imagination.
When they told me about the galactic pulsation, they were looking at me and they were going, imminent, imminent, imminent. They said it 3 times like that, so that I would understand that this was going to happen. With no ifs, ands, or buts. It is happening, it is coming now. They told me the message was to abort the planet. Abort planet.
The more out of control we feel personally, I think the more we it would be likely that the more tendency we'd have to go with a theory like that, which will explain the unexplainable.
You're not going to use any of
No,
that?
no.
Okay, good.
None of that.
Right. How was that?
We're going to go with the hard guy.
They told me that we are to activate the codings in our DNA. That the DNA has the fail-safe mechanism for the 5th dimensional light body. This is what people are talking about with the ascension. And they said that the secret lies in the DNA, it's in the genetics, that the Creator put it in there as a fail-safe mechanism for us at this particular moment in time, this pivotal moment in human evolution.
Transition is underway. A transcendent transformation of the human race.
Here's one of my very favorite people in the whole world, Bob Dean.
You got to buy that book.
I'm already on it. Hey, Bob, how are you?
He's one of the finest historians of our time.
The government
Separates us. Keeps us fearful.
Right. All of these things are manifestation of our own fear? Or of a larger, is there a larger?
I get angry and I get frustrated. Because it looks to me like people are being manipulated to keep them on edge, to keep them fearful. You know, then their response is simply this, oh, save us, won't you please? Big government, do whatever you can, but save us. Oh, you get me started on that, I'll become profane. So you'll have to cut all this out. I fault religions, you see, for not teaching the people the essential truth. They teach dogma. They separate people. My God's better than your God. My book's better than your book. I have the truth, you don't. We have extraterrestrial intelligences that have been with us from the beginning of our history. They're nurturing us, they're encouraging us, they're prodding us, they're trying to assist this species to make this transition through its adolescence. Our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are all going to go to the stars. And that's where we came from, that's where we're going back. And that's our rightful place out there.
I love these expos. I'm fascinated with knowledge and how much we don't know. And sometimes I even meet important people like Dean Hackman I met once. And,
Really? Did you?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, no, serious. I did.
You get a picture?
No, I don't want a picture with him. Everybody's starting to get interested in the significance of hidden things.
Yeah.
You know, like what do the symbols of government mean, and why are these words and terms being used in federal government?
How do you feel about that?
It's an incredible story of how much the world does not know. I've always said that the reason why America has freedom of speech is because nobody knows anything. So if you don't know anything, yeah, go on and talk. Yeah, talk all you want because you don't know nothing anyway. But if you do know something and it is legitimately important, you're going to get whacked. You're going to jail. Or you're going to get visited 3 o'clock in the morning from federal agents.
And the only hope that I see is if enough people like yourselves begin to communicate to others, you don't have to be politically correct. You don't have to think like a master would want you to think.
Governments and institutions and educational and secret societies, fraternal orders, all of these organizations use their own in-house language. I use the idea graffiti on the wall.
Yeah.
Most people driving through see this as vandalism of a bunch of kids doing this. But I'm saying, no, I know. Those symbols mean something.
Absolutely.
And if you don't understand what those symbols mean, don't go driving through
Right.
late at night.
That's a
That's right.
gang
Exactly.
territory, right?
It's gang territory. When Obama is running for president, the symbols he was using,
Right.
you better go back and look at those symbols and find out
Yes,
where they
we
really
can.
came from.
Right.
And then where Bush was in power, what those symbols meant to the secret societies of Europe.
2,000 years ago, a beautiful young man tried to teach us a few things. A young man from Galilee.
Uh-huh. And that didn't go well.
Well, the teaching went well. The teaching is still here.
There is some kind of a highly intelligent matrix in another dimension, somehow, that is able to maneuver the human psyche, the human evolution.
The kingdom of God is within. And he says, what I do, you can do, and even more.
Because I see it in symbols that came out of Egypt, that came out of the Hindu tradition, that came out of the Central and South American tradition, the Aztecs and the Maya. Emblems, symbols, words, and terms.
Only now today are philosophers and theologians beginning to grasp what he really meant.
2,000 years later.
2,000 years later. We're slow learners, we human beings.
I'd say 2,000 years is a bit of a learning curve.
What do these things all imply? It implies that there is a higher intellectual, spiritual dimension to life. And certain prophets, seers, gurus, whatever, they tune into something that's out there.
So we are going to different conventions and then having people, invariably they come up and tell me all about their conspiracies.
Welcome, everyone. This is Berlin. We're at X-Con.
This is the only remaining air raid shelter in Berlin, the last surviving one. Now a museum on the ground floor and a spooky, haunted, ghostly maze of fun and creepy excitement on the top floor. You can see, some of the buildings actually have bullet holes in them.
He planned the attentat on Hitler.
Right, Valkyrie, the movie,
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, the actual photo of the guy that Tom Cruise played. And frankly, it sort of looks like Tom Cruise, a little bit. More than, I would say, Bernheim looks like. If Tom Cruise played him, that would be bad casting. This, not bad casting.
I love the lopsided beds. Doo-dee-doo.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Chill Pack Hollywood Hour. Yay! See how easy that is? Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Now, your background, in addition to comedy, is also in dance, is it not?
Well, yes. When
You
I
have
was
formal dance training.
in university, I took 3 years ballet and 4 years modern dance. Yes. Because I was in a late 80s punk band. Yeah. We were called Truncheon Scars. Huh?
Whoa,
That's awesome, isn't it? Yeah, we were like from the Canadian prairies.
The lead singer worked in the Canadian military as a demolition expert. And so he started working with Radio Free El Salvador, and he had his own punk rock show. So he played Canadian punk bands. So it's a long story, but we think he personally blew up the general in the helicopter with Radio Free El Salvador.
You've heard a lot of conspiracies on this tour you've been doing over the US, etc. And I guess you would have heard everything. Is there any favorite and like ridiculous, oh my God, did they just tell me this?
I mean, just as a storyteller, I find this one enjoyable. The idea that there are certain filmmakers who have been set up as mouthpieces for the Illuminati, that they have been given access to certain information, that their careers have been set up, and they're sending out the information that the Illuminati wants us to have to either prepare us for things or to distract us from things.
Hi, now we're at the Stasi prison.
And of course, one of the people who is rumored to be among these is Chris Carter.
In fact, Chris Carter said to me very early on in the series that he didn't want me going to science fiction conventions because he didn't want the X-Files attached to the phrase science fiction. He thought the X-Files was science probability.
Was it Perry Farrell?
Oh, yes. From the band Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros. Perry Farrell is a very large believer in extraterrestrial life. And in fact, he refused to play music for the X-Files compilation CD. He said because the X-Files popularized aliens, that it actually set back human-alien relations by 20 years. So just he would pick up the phone and go kill that guy and they would go and execute him?
It's not so easy, but...
No, more or less. There's no artwork, though. He didn't put pictures up?
In the conference room, it's a painting of a building of a wall.
Of the building of the wall, a painting of it. And that's them building the wall.
Right before, yeah.
Right, and they're helping children, is that the idea?
Many accounts of people who have had something happen to them are shaped by the popular mythology of the time. When you are in an extraordinary circumstance, a lot of time you start to form a narrative and it's based on sometimes movies and things that you've seen.
These look like bugs, right? Yes. And that's my cameras in the tie. That's for the dogs.
Yeah.
So everyone had their own smell jar?
Yes. Smell sample.
Wow, that's very organized.
We're so quick to pick at the details of the story, rather than taking in the person who is telling us and saying, you know, I don't believe that it happened exactly like this person is saying, but something did happen.
Something did happen.
Here we have pictures from the air.
There's more UFO sightings in Mexico and Central America than there are now in the US. In the 80s and 90s, there was the majority of the sightings were in the US. And some believe that's because it's reverse engineering of alien technology and that it's cheaper to manufacture in Mexico now.
The swine flu is another one of my favorite conspiracies.
Isn't it? Who's got swine flu? Did somebody have it here? Yes. Really?
I should stop kissing those pigs. But
There is a lot we don't yet know about this outbreak, but we have been preparing as if we are facing a true pandemic.
Dean would tell me, you know, right now the hotbed of UFO sightings is Mexico. And what's the first country that you can't visit because of the swine flu? It's Mexico.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
If there were a conspiracy against you, what would be the tone of that? What would people be conspiring against you about?
Well, I would imagine that it would be to quell full artistic expression in a rebellious nature. You know what people don't know? Even though they bought the comic book I drew called Why the Lone Gunman Was Canceled, they don't know that I am actually a painter and an artist, one of my enduring passions. What you're looking at here is the backsplash. We love the film noir aspect of being downtown Los Angeles. And what better way to celebrate it than a mural homage to film noir? Hence why Indemnity Street. Is that good?
Come around this way. This way. Yeah. And now I want you to put your left foot and right foot over the eye.
Over the eye.
Yeah, I mean over on either side. You see, now you're in the left and right hemisphere. And what you are doing is you, like a great tree, are growing out of the vision of ancientness and innocence, and you awaken now into your form to be reminded of your journey. I feel we're at a point where we have inherited all of this remarkable perception and tradition from the ancestors, but not any one group of ancestors. Truly our humanity, our deeper humanity, if we think of it, well, we're on a sphere, we're on this globe, we're not in a line progressing from here to there. We're literally starting to see that all of these different elements are interconnected. And more of that sense, I think, is a bit like connecting the synapses in the brain. You know, it's not this or that, but if we can hold all of these elements, we start to awaken a sense of, oh, I can draw from all of that magnificence that is our human inheritance, not just our cultural inheritance, not just our racial inheritance, but truly the long and arduous journey, the difficult journey of our human experience. There's a great deal of humor in this, and it wasn't really intentional. It started to reveal itself as visual puns. The Egyptians and the Maya revered puns. The alchemists would say that the pun was essential to our knowing of things, because when we pun, we create multiple meaning.
Right.
And that truth to be known cannot be a fixed thing.
I believe it was Henri Cartier-Bresson, who as a photographer started by taking a picture of a cup, a single cup, and he took it some 200 times till he got it right, he said. And that's how he learned photography. And after that, he went out and became an acclaimed photographer.
I spent 17 years revisioning the major arcana of the tarot, and my world archetype, which has twin towers, was dated 9/11, 1986. And the drawing was about the falling away of the old pillars of thought to release the inner energetics of perception. The room inside, the hieroglyph of the human soul, as it's called, started on 9/11, 2001, when the towers came down. Rather than reacting to an act of violence, it was becoming the seed of responding with an act of creation.
If you look historically, that's always been the role of the artist, to fight against the man in society around them. There hasn't been one, opportunity for an artist to live well and express himself fully as he wanted to. Even Michelangelo, who was, one of the most successful artists of all time, still fought the church.
I'm very informed by the American Transcendentalists, William Blake and John Dee, all of these beings who said, look, if the cultural conversation is not nourishing, then create your own, create place for it. And so 28 years ago, I created place for it. And I feel like this is the garden that's grown out of the willingness to create space for ideas that liberate, rather than just enslave us with a type of righteousness that I'm right, and you're wrong.
Right.
That fury leads in a circle, like a dog chasing its own tail, and we go faster and faster nowhere.
It makes me think about the chicken and the egg. And the chicken and the egg, as I'm sure you know, the chicken has to peck its way out of the egg. We can't help it peck its way out. If we help it peck its way out, it dies.
We truly have to awaken a 21st century sensibility. We've gone through postmodernism, deconstruction, conceptual art, but now it really is, give me creation. Give me the dark journey of not knowing again. Give me the transformation of yourself because you are willing to dive into that darkness. Don't stand on the sides of the river and comment on how corrupt and dark and evil everything is. We all know that.
The artistic impulse is much like that. That it needs something to peck against in order to find its full flower.
I love this idea of three-dimensionality that you came upon later, right?
Yes, the chroma-depth glasses, which I always love, is this sense of the true intellectual conversation where you're thinking, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Seriously, though.
Yes, let us now talk
Yes.
about the ancient.
Yes.
But it's amazing that the lighter colors are floating above these darker blues. It's almost like I'm walking on an aquarium or something.
This appears on the spines of the religion section.
Oh.
So
you know specifically what the books are underneath there.
You see, because here we have the
Gideon's Bible.
Yes, and on its spine we see a unique quality of beauty of the universe. And what this is telling us is you see every tradition, like every individual, has a unique beauty. And if we stop fighting over who's right and who's wrong, we can put it back on the shelf and understand, oh, all time, all tradition reveals a unique beauty, a unique insight. With 9/11, I said the apocalyptic storytellers are doing it again. They can't figure out what to do with the end of Act 3,
Right.
so they blow everything up.
Blow everything up.
And I said, we can do better than that.
All right.
To me, it's the storyteller's responsibility to say, well, if that's the story that's being told out there, then maybe we have to reinforce with one another that we actually, if you look at history, have a power, if we don't think in time, but we think in tone, that if we find the right tone, it's going to ambiate across the ages. Because that's why when we read Plato, we still get thrilled. What stories do we want to share with our children? What portrait of humanity do we want to convey to our children? What do we want to tell them that they are and what they're about? And that's why I realized I couldn't fight the world. I wasn't even interested in fighting the world. But if I could leave a love letter, if I could leave a note in a bottle that said, this is why I love my wife and my children and my friends. This is the nourishing truth of being human. It's not convincing my neighbor. My neighbor has his own life. And if he treats his children well and his wife well, and I don't care what God or where he goes, because you know what? He's found something that is relevant. But I'm not going to lean over into his yard and tell him how to grow his garden.
I'm Canadian. Born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Actually outside of Winnipeg, a little town called Oakbank in the blistery colds. And now I live in Los Angeles. That's the United Artists Building. Mary Pickford. Her and her husband, Douglas Fairbanks, along with Charlie Chaplin and B.W. Griffith, left their studios and formed a artist collective called United Artists, where they would make their own movies and be their own distribution company. This building right over here is exactly where Harold Lloyd hung from the clock face in Safety Last. So this is why I love Los Angeles. The history of filming, that's United Artists, that's Harold Lloyd, and it still goes on today. It's all right here.
How do we reconcile our past to our present and step into the future? So many of us live in our past because of pain, relationships, different things that we find really hard to let go, that we don't have an ability to live in the present and therefore make a good future. So that Yesterday Was a Lie about this woman's journey to reconcile all of that. The film is a film noir shot in classic black and white, and it explores the blacks, whites, and grays of human relationships. And I just thought this is a brilliant concept and I want to support it. So I stepped in and said, damn it, I'll do it. And I produced the film.
Wow.
And it's been an incredibly empowering experience, but a very, very naked experience, frankly, in terms of realizing my own, realizing my own shortcomings. Yesterday Was a Lie has a lot of alchemy and alchemical symbolism and references throughout it. Just basically, obviously for those who don't know, it's the process of refinement into gold in the physical universe, but the metaphor being refining ourselves into the gold of the human beings that we could be.
There's a metaphor to it? I didn't know that. I thought I was strictly greedy.
You wanted the cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. We came from the Science and Non-Duality Conference straight to the Alchemy Conference. And yeah, Science and Non-Duality. And I didn't even know what the term meant.
Oh, I love it. There's non-duality. That means there's a singularity.
Singularity of science and spirituality.
Oh.
That they don't have to be separate things.
Ah, I see.
I personally think that what can be so unattractive about some people's belief systems, if I may, is that they're so sure. Everybody who's claiming that they know, there's so much you don't know.
There's so much.
Why are we afraid of admitting that there is mystery? What is it? Do we not believe, do we not want to seek truth because we don't think it's there, or because we don't want the responsibility? We're not a society that's quiet at all. And how do we find the time and the willingness to really be willing to listen and accept the truth, no matter what it is? How do we seek like that? How do we find the braveness and the wherewithal to do that? It's not easy, is it?
No, and I want to know the answer.
I know.
What is the answer?
I'm not saying I have the answer. That was the mystery part that we talked about a few minutes ago.
How do you feel about your talent?
Oh, I like it.
Do you feel that you're in the full bloom of that talent?
No, clearly not. I mean, there's always more to grow, and
Okay. And
that
what-
instrument can be.
And what has stopped you from that?
Money, time, other projects, other creative outlets that I pursued. I've invented a laptop cooling system called the Chill Pack that sells around the world. I won a silver medal at the International Inventors Expo in Geneva,
You
Switzerland.
did?
Mm-hmm. Chill Pack. Laptop cooling system. Goes in the freezer, goes under the laptop, draws the heat away from the CPU, speeds the whole thing up. It's got a condensation-proof sleeve on it, so no moisture develops. Insulated on the bottom, so you can actually put it in your lap.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. And,
Talent.
and that's also put me into a corporate entity.
And how do you feel about that?
I enjoy customer service and trying to run a company that's organic and not polluting and leaving a large carbon footprint. And I find I lack organizational skills that probably would be handy in this corporation structure. That's all.
What makes you sad, Dean?
What makes me sad? Well,
Because you have an interesting sort of circuitous answer to every question.
do I?
Mm-hmm. You seem to be very open, but I'm not sure that's true. You're intellectually open.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're emotionally open.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Vancouver, British Columbia, my hometown.
Not really.
No, no.
How long did you live here?
It was 15 years walking these very streets. Behold, this is Riverview Hospital, where we filmed all sorts of X-Files episodes. That they built a Gunman office in here. You would think you'd drive back 10 years later. Now I'm involved, of course. I go to the conspiracy and the UFO things. Are you guys fun getting any of that action?
No, not really.
Why were you and your soul drawn to that particular topic and then pursuing it? There are other people on the show who aren't still involved with conspiracy matters,
That's
right?
true.
I mean, I'm not very friendly towards the sort of conspiracy end of things anyway, so I don't think I'd be too comfortable.
What do you mean you're not too friendly towards them?
I think they're all idiots. But when given a choice between conspiracy and incompetence, I always plump for incompetence. Because what looks like a conspiracy is a lot of ass covering, usually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, there is a conspiracy in the sense that, what did we do? Well, we better not tell anyone we did this. You say this, you say this, you say this. It's a ghastly mess.
You see the runaway lane sign?
Yeah, I got that.
The snow?
So you think this is good footage?
It's a cool shot if it looks, if you can really see the fog. You want to make a horror movie in the Arctic? Here's some footage for you for the opening credit sequence. Names coming out of the fog.
That's how warm it is. Look at that. Fucking January's melting. Tell me there's no global warming. There is a rumor Canadians are not so much polite as we just repress our rage. I think Oscar Peterson moved down to the States because he appreciated the open racism as opposed to the hidden racism of Canada. The small town I grew up in had some real idiots in there that we, didn't get along.
You've got a lot of judgment.
Well, that's from
why
my
I
stand.
think the conspiracy thing is so interesting for you because you're very judgmental. I mean, you have put down
Everybody. That's what my girlfriend said. Phil, Roman, Phil. Look at that. Nice to meet you.
You were driving my car for some reason and going around this sort of roundabout, little residential neighborhood, just getting ready to go on the road for a gig. And some guy with his family in the car kind of does the wrong turn in the roundabout. So what happens is the two driver's sides pass right by each other. There's plenty of room for Dean to get by, and this guy, he's made a mistake, obviously, right? But Dean's got at that time, had super long hair and his dark sunglasses, and he's talking to me, talking to me. Sees this guy make a mistake and just turns to the guy and goes, "Fuck you, man!" With his long hair and his dark glasses. And all I see is this family's frightened faces.
You're very judgmental and you don't see yourself that. You see yourself, oh, I like, but mostly the half-full glass guy.
Anger.
I'd like to point out, I bet that guy never made a mistake on a roundabout again.
Probably not.
First of all, every person that's not an artist, you have a judgment about.
Well, no, I mean,
It sounds like
well, it sounds like it, but I guess I believe everybody has
the potential for artistic expression.
Why should everybody be an artist? Why should everybody have an artistic expression?
Because it's really fun.
Well, if it's fun for you, because that's your soul's path. But why do you need everybody else to be that way? And this is the conspiracy, the nub of the conspiracy theory.
Interesting.
It's like everybody has to believe this or this. Why? Why can't there be people who have no artistic intention whatsoever, and their art is just in living?
This is all of our garlic, planted in October and November. Just about 5,000 cloves in there.
This is your bathtub.
This is our bathtub. So the fire goes underneath. We bring a hose from the standpipe over by the cabin, run a hose in, run cold water in, get a fire going, warm it up so that it's at the point where it's presentable. Put the plywood in the tub so you don't burn your ass on the...
Does that get that hot?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
This horse and the buddy taught Sandra and I everything. I have huge respect for him. He was such a giving guy because I was so green at it. You know, I was inexperienced. And he eventually showed me, you know, you don't do it that way. This is the way, there's a better way of doing it. This is the way. So I had a huge learning curve, and it was all done with this, with Pat and with Mike.
What's ironic is when you sit by the wood fire, that is the only way they heat the place, and there are propane lamps burning in the night. You can read the latest issue of the New Yorker because they have a subscription.
So I don't want to shut the world off. I want to kind of be part of it.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be.
That's funny. You
sort
want
of au courant.
There's no tendency to shut the gate and never.
You know,
never go and visit the outside.
We don't lock anything here. You know, that's the thing.
Diane, I'm entering the town of Twin Peaks.
This is probably one of our biggest mysteries, the Roswell of the Northwest, but more accurately, it is the case that opened up modern day ufology. Kenneth Arnold's sighting, of course, is when media coined the term flying saucer.
And this is actually debris?
Yeah.
You're asking, hey, we're on our way to Yakima. Are we going to see any UFOs anywhere? If we look towards the Mount Adams, do you want to? When you think about it, you just projected that thought out there.
Right.
And there's someone out there picking up that thought.
Picking up
I
that.
really believe that because I have been with groups of people and we have successfully either drawn or just let the sort of the veil go away. And there's UFOs. They're almost always out there.
There is the Yakima firing range just south of there. That is a huge global listening, surveillance, military base. It's like the Northwest Area 51. Yeah.
Right. That's so cool.
We share the basement wall, which is considered the most haunted theater here in the Northwest.
Have you seen a ghost here?
I've actually, in this neighborhood, 2 years ago, half a torso of a man walk into a wall. This box is probably our most sophisticated device. K2 meter connect to a voice chip.
Right.
Along the veins of what Thomas Edison was trying to do, communicate to death. This is simply a voice box, a courtesy voice box to the other side.
Oh, I tried to track ghosts in Galveston, you know, so.
How'd that work out?
Actually, we saw one.
Did you really?
It was a lady that stood at the window, and all the people that drove by typically saw her. They just didn't know if they were seeing a ghost. See how easy it is to make the leap into UFOs are real, ETs are real. They've been visiting us because, you know, that was just sort of within my lifestyle.
Washington State has had several crop circles. One of them we think is truly mysterious. It is very detailed and very precise.
Yeah. And I've interviewed folks that have gone yearly to the crop circles, and I think that in and of itself is an amazing phenomenon that got such very little, you know, coverage. We should be covering it every summer when it's happening.
One Sunday I got up and I had the paper and I looked, and it was the first time I'd seen a crop formation, and I had that real feeling that I had to go and see it. and a big flock of geese came across. And when they got to it, they went like this. So they did an invisible brick wall, fluttered, separated, went round it.
Here we are in Stonehenge, home to many crop circles.
There are about 200 of these every year.
Every year.
When they first started, they were circles. And there were circles within circles. The Aborigines, when they want to know if there's any water in their little well or whatever it is, they will draw in white, because they paint their faces with the white and everything. And they used to do a circle on a rock, and then a circle within a circle. And the more circles they had, the more water was ahead. While I'm thinking, is there anything connected with water? A lake in Andover went empty overnight. A guy walking his dog said, I saw this orange glow over the lake, and there was something going round like that, and the water disappeared.
The hay baler. So here we are at Stonehenge.
These Americans went up and flew right round Stonehenge, and they were looking, you know, and absorbing, taking pictures and everything like that, and fly back to Thruxton. And it takes about 3/4 of an hour to get another load of people and bring them back. Right. And the next time they came back, which was in 45 minutes, this was here. It wasn't when the first lot went out.
So what did you learn about yourself?
Wow, this is what I'm thinking now that you said that. If there's a personal demon, what conspiracies am I really enjoying?
I'll tell you how you discover them.
Okay.
Okay. The ones that make you crazy.
Hi, everybody. Here we are, Casa de Fruta, on our journey of 1,000 miles. We're going mad.
Well, you know what's got me crazy? What? You know when you buy an apple and there's a little sticker on it now, every piece of fruit? This whole conglomerate corporatization of our foodstuffs.
The genetically modified food. 85% of our corn and 90% of our soy is genetically modified. And when you do that, you alter fertility. In the animals, for instance, hogs, this genetically modified corn become infertile.
As I recall, the story had something to do with the salesman that came to this beautiful little village where everything was beautiful, the sun was shining, and life was free and easy. But this guy, the salesman, came and he was selling oil lamps.
2 out of 3 children are fat. And why are they fat? Well, because they're drinking diet drinks. And what do they put in the diet drinks? Aspartame. And of course, aspartame produces pathological obesity in animals. They know this.
So it's not that it's reducing calories, it's the actual changing.
Because they're taking aspartame that poisons the metabolic system in our bodies.
What do we need oil lamps for? The sun is out and we can see. So, yeah, but you need to see at night, don't you? And besides, even in the daytime, sometimes it gets cloudy and you could use extra light. So he sold the oil lamps because it was a means of improving upon nature.
MSG is very similar to aspartame. Basically, it destroys brain tissue and leads to multiple sclerosis.
Sure enough, the oil lamps did improve upon nature in some ways, but the trouble is it produced black smoke.
If you're looking on the labels, they don't call it MSG, they call it natural food flavoring.
The more lamps they used to improve on nature, the more black smoke that was produced, and then nature stopped working.
There are just so many things in our food supply that, for instance, soy products. Soy products are not good for you in large amounts.
Well, finally, they were left totally dependent upon the salesman because they had to buy all of these lamps because the sky was filled with black soot. And now they couldn't live in nature anymore. It was an allegory like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Never had anything like that taught to me. Right? It was always collectivism, that government is here to improve upon things, that nature is not good enough.
There are studies that show you double the incidence of cancer of the prostate by drinking milk. You double or triple the incidence of carcinoma of the breast if women drink large sums of milk, especially if they're drinking this milk that is made from cows that have been given this recombinant bovine growth hormone.
Let me ask you a personal question.
Yes.
Then. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a grapefruit.
A grapefruit.
That's all I have.
And where did that grapefruit, do you know where it came from? Has it been,
no, but I think this grapefruit is probably fairly safe for eating fruits and vegetables. And you wash them off Most of these are all right.
You'd be surprised at how many people out there who are getting sick from water don't realize it's the water that's making them sick.
68% of the communities in this nation today are fluoridated, and 90% of those are using not sodium fluoride, which is bad, but hydrofluosilicic acid, which is far worse, which raises the level of lead in the blood. And of course, lead is, there's no safe level of lead.
So 1 out of 6 people in the world actually don't have access to fresh water. Wow, crazy.
Doctors don't know these things because their medical societies have been taken over. Dentists don't know these things because their societies have been taken over, and they're using the medical doctors and the dentists of this nation to recommend so many things that are harmful to our health, like the vaccines with mercury in them.
Orthodox medicine looks at the tumor and says, that's the cancer, let's get rid of it. So they're going to cut it out, poison it, or radiate it, and they look at it, it's gone, we got the cancer. And never once did they think, why did the cancer grow there in the first place? So 9 chances out of 10, you get the tumor, madam, sorry to tell you, your cancer has come back.
Today in the United States, 1 out of every 6 children has a learning disability or a neurodevelopmental abnormality. 1 in 9 children has asthma. 1 in 11 or 12 children has severe allergies. 1 in every 60 boys has autism, and 1 in 190 to 100 children is autistic. 1 in every 450 children has the autoimmune disease, which we know as diabetes type 1. It used to be 1 in every 7,500. We have hundreds of thousands of children with inflammatory arthritis, juvenile arthritis. You don't see this in children who haven't been vaccinated. You see it very, very seldom, and the government knows that.
The theory that I was advocating in my book, World Without Cancer, is that we have to find the cause of the cancer and attack that.
Almost 40 years in the war on cancer, and we've got as much cancer as we have. And why? Is it because the government officials are inept? No.
Cancer really is not something that happens to us. It's not caused by something. It's caused by the lack of something. It's a deficiency disorder.
You launch a war on cancer and you get more cancer. You watch a war on terrorism, you get more terrorism.
Right.
You launch a war on poverty, you get more poverty. And what are the American people going to wake up and realize? We're not trying to solve the problems, we're trying to create them.
And if anybody thinks that wars are fought over like religion or like principles, no, it's resources.
There are certain places in the world where cancer is almost unheard of. And in every case, when you examine the native diet of those people, it's loaded with amygdalin. It's been known for a long time. You'll find it in some of the old pharmacopoeia books, and has been, actually, interestingly enough, it was actually used in the control of cancer over 150 years ago in Europe.
You're kidding?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. But it just buried, nobody thought anything much about it because you can't patent it, you see. It's found in nature. And we're living in a society today where medicines are patented. And if you don't have a patent, you can't make any money on it. Apricot seeds, peach seeds, plum seeds, cherry bits, if you can crack them open, lots of luck. I mean, that's a lot of work to get just a little bit.
Right.
But apple seeds are a good source.
Don't they also have arsenic in apple seeds?
Oh, they have cyanide in them.
Cyanide.
And there's the scare word. It's got cyanide and glucose and the benzaldehyde. It's a 3-component molecule. And in that form, it's not toxic at all.
Oh.
In fact, it's good for you. The question is, what breaks that molecule apart and releases the cyanide? Now, that's what you've got to be interested in.
Yeah.
Just releases the pure cyanide. Well, it turns out that there is a substance that does exactly that, and it's an enzyme. Amygdalin comes in contact with that enzyme. The molecule is broken apart, and the toxic cyanide is released. And so where is this unlocking enzyme?
I hope it's not in my stomach.
Well, I'm glad you're sitting down because it's in cancer cells.
You're kidding.
That amygdalin is going to come into contact with your cancer cell. It's going to meet that unlocking enzyme. It's going to release the toxic substances, and your cancer cells will be poisoned. Not your normal cells, but your cancer cells. So this is proven chemistry. It's exactly what they keep saying in the pharmaceutical industry that they're looking for. Something that's specific against cancer cells. And there it is. It's in nature. It grows on trees.
I actually was a singer-songwriter in New York City and a preschool teacher in the daytime.
Cool.
And I had a class across the street from the World Trade Center. So on Tuesday, September 11th, I was actually supposed to be in the building. To me, I was kind of look where the inspiration is and where there's tragedy, because there always is something. And my choice was to see the world as coming together.
I had been taught in school that the United Nations was our last best hope for peace. And it was a means of establishing a universal brotherhood. And it was the means of working out our differences and our problems in the absence of war and all of these things. How could anybody say anything negative about the United Nations? It's not like the American system was supposed to be, where the government obeys the people and serves the people. This was the other way around. The people would serve the government because it would be in their best interest to do so.
I had learned how to do some really simple water technologies that you could build, teach people in local villages how to build. And I then won an award from Queen Latifah and CoverGirl for women who are changing the world through music. I got a $10,000 award, and I said, okay, here's our money to start our water projects.
Unfortunately, while we were focusing on the evils of communism because of this collectivist nature in which it was government at the top and people controlled at the bottom, we didn't realize that the same concept was being developed right here in our own country under a different name. Democracy, you see, the greatest good for the greater number. The majority should rule. Well, you can commit any atrocity in the world under the theory that it's for the greater good of the greater number. In fact, all of the greatest atrocities of the world in recent times have been committed under that name.
It's all everyone out for themselves. We think we lost the culture of sort of making sure that we care about each other and generations ahead of us. So the issue in developing countries is, one, they lack access, and there's no real government money to invest in being able to provide everybody with clean water. Plus, there are depleting water systems. But one of the biggest things, and the political thing, is the water privatization. These developing countries actually take out loans from these international, monetary institutions like the IMF and WTO and the World Bank. One of the conditions of them receiving that and to help them pay off their loans is to actually sell off the water rights. Oh, yeah. And that's how all the privatization happens. And you don't just see that in developing world, you actually see that in the United States too. We're talking about seriously antiquated systems in many parts of the country, right. And if they're all now kind of in disrepair. We know in the financial crisis now, but even before that, there was no money, there was not enough money to really overhaul it. Mm-hmm. So it was very tempting, for local leaders to have these developers. They don't go in as these multinational corporations. They go in as developers, and they go in and say, "We'll fix it for you." Once it was declared a commodity, it was could be bought and trade on the market. Yeah. So it was not considered a human right. The question becomes, whose water is it?
Now that we live in this information blizzard, this data flood.
It is a blizzard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way to sort of run through pop culture, as it were, is to do immediate evaluation.
If I talk about looking to water's wisdom and embodying it, then I really feel like I am. In that I'm just water doesn't know where it's going, it just goes. And it goes where it's kind of being led. And that's kind of how I feel like I've been doing. As long as you're just sort of listening and taking opportunities everywhere you go and believing, if you are where you are, then that's where you're supposed to be. My little brain that can only have imagined me kind of going this path of singing and, whatever, would never have imagined this.
I think I'm hearing that you feel a little deluged by the onslaught of a variety of things. In other words, you live in the center of a blizzard.
Yes.
And you feel that blizzard. You feel the icy fingers of it upon you.
It's not our obligation to help each other because we're all connected. It's our honor to. We should be so thrilled that we're powerful enough and, compassionate enough to be able to be of service in such a deep way.
When we're judging somebody, we're not intimate with them.
Right.
Right?
We're separating
We're
ourselves
separating
ourselves
ourselves.
out.
So that would be, if I were you and I wanted to know more about myself,
Uh-huh.
I would be exploring what other devices I use to make sure that I'm protecting myself from this blizzard.
Hasn't our banking situation been a result of a free market without unfettered government intervention that has resulted in where we sit today economically?
Good question, because the answer is astounding to most people, and it's absolutely no.
What? Really?
Yes, it's a myth. The biggest, most powerful banking conglomerates in the world met together on Jekyll Island in 1910 and created the Federal Reserve System. What they created was a cartel agreement. A cartel is a group of independent companies who have come together for the purpose of reducing or eliminating competition between themselves so that they can dominate the market and enhance their profit margins. They don't want competition. Just the opposite of the free market. John D. Rockefeller is quoted by all of his biographers. He said over and over again, competition is a sin. We'll call it federal. That'll make it sound like it has something to do with the government. People will say, federal? Well, it's no more federal than Federal Express, you know? But they chose the name for that reason. And they said, well, let's call it, let's put the word reserve into it, because that makes it sound like there are reserves. There are no reserves. It's just a name. So what they do is they go to the government and they say, here's our cartel agreement. Would you please pass that into law?
Oh.
And they did. Recently in Washington, when things got really bad, Congress would just start voting trillions and trillions of dollars to plug here and plug there. They called it a stimulus program or a bailout. And, you know, people never thought, where does this money come from? Well, they go to their partner, the Federal Reserve System, and they say, okay, we just voted these funds, so now give us the money. You see, and the Federal Reserve System literally creates it out of thin air. In the banking system, according to this cartel arrangement, the rules that they set up, for every $1,000 on deposit, the banks can create up to an additional $9,000 out of thin air and loan it to people.
Any bank?
Any bank. Which means that for every $1 trillion created out of thin air by the Federal Reserve for the government, by the time that gets into the commercial banking system, up to an additional $9 trillion can be created and is created by the commercial banking system, which are the members of the cartel. This is where the action is. This is where the power is. These are the owners of the Federal Reserve System. That's why they created it. Now they can create all this money out of nothing and collect interest on nothing. If the banks failed, that would be terrible, I agree, but the nation would recover. If we don't allow these corrupt banks to fail, then the nation will fail, and there will be no recovery.
So what do you like least about yourself?
I think my lack of, not discipline, but organizational abilities. You know, had I been more organized, I probably could get more done.
I've always been accused of not staying with one thing. You know, oh, I should have just cartooned my whole life, not got into acting. Oh, well, now, you know, you fired your agent and you did stand-up, and then you realize stand-up is kind of crappy on the road.
In the beginning, it seemed to me that the primary motive was just wealth. About the same time that the Federal Reserve System came into being, there was another motive that began to be discussed among these people and showed up in their papers and in their books and their speeches. And that motive was to create what they fondly call the New World Order.
I believe there's a lovely New Yorker editorial cartoon with a kid on the floor, and then the mom says, you know, maybe it'd be productive if you channeled your energy just into one thing.
Within my life, going back about 16 years ago, I had already read a lot of history books, so I knew how governments really operated from a wide spectrum analysis of history. Totally different from what was being taught in school. I was being taught global government's good, the Second Amendment's bad. I was being taught a left-right paradigm.
So welcome to El Paso, Texas. This is where I got bit in the hand by an audience member.
It didn't fit into anything that I had read, you know, previous, to that 100 years, where people were taught liberty versus tyranny, freedom versus slavery. And I learned that the same interests were controlling both political parties in almost every nation.
We're in Benini's art gallery at the moment. He's on 120 acres that was originally owned by Lyndon B. Johnson. And Lyndon B. Johnson bought this farm a week after JFK was shot.
I've been awake since I was a child to the wonder, to the majesty, to the magic of the world. And I think it's because I had that poetic, loving heart that I was able early on to also see the bad. It's because I see the good and the beauty and the innocence and the honor and everything pure that I'm also able to then see the things that are dark and degenerate and dangerous and aberrant. The elites admit what they've done in their own annals, their own documents, their own articles, and they always laugh at us and say the public won't read this. I mean, Carol Quigley was let into the elite's own documents in the 60s, wrote Tragedy and Hope, admitting we control the left, we control the right, we put in the communist and the fascist, we want a global dictatorship run by the banks.
There's nothing intrinsically wrong with world government if it's the right kind of government. If it was based on the model of freedom, where individual rights were respected and we had a free market and people could travel as they wish and have their own customs and their own, whatever they want, as long as they don't interfere with the life, liberty, and property of other people, that'd be a wonderful system. That's not what we're talking about in the real world today.
They had a Financial Times of London article last year saying, and now for global government. And he said, yes, we've kept it secret for your own good. And that publication is home of the Bilderberg Group, a Bilderberg Group member.
I suppose it's the Bilderberg Group. I mean, I've heard that.
Well, there are many, many groups in the world of elitists who really want to limit the population of the world. And the Bilderbergers are simply one of them.
David Rockefeller wrote a book 4 years ago saying, I want a one world government that is unelected. In January of 2009, I said, Obama will have the lowest approval rating of any president by the end of the year. He will go back on everything he promised to do, because I knew who his advisors were and what they had been saying. And they were sending out quiet press releases to heads of government and others saying, don't worry, he's not getting rid of NAFTA and GATT. Don't worry, he's not getting us out of the WTO. Don't worry, he's not going to end the wars, he's going to expand them. They were putting out in the lobbyist reports, don't worry, it's a scam. Just like the insurance company 6 months ago put out releases to other lobbyist groups say, don't oppose this. We're just saying we're against the healthcare thing so people won't know it's a big money maker for us. And they've now had thousands of articles the last year in every major publication going, okay, world government's real. Okay, planetary regime is real.
Right. They're coming forward with this quite openly, it seems.
And see, they stalled us until they think it's too late.
That's what's behind this movement for disarmament. They'd like to convince the people that we're going to disarm all the nations of the world so we won't have war anymore. How nice that sounds. But it's not true. What they're trying to do is take the arms away from the individual nations and give them to the United Nations.
The banker bailout, a scam. The healthcare plan, a scam. The forced flu inoculation system, a scam. Now even the EU Commission says they bought off their leaders, paid them off. The vaccine's dangerous. The German government wouldn't even take the shots themselves.
As long as that system exists, and as long as the people allow it to exist and think somehow it really is in their best interest, then I have no prognosis at all of coming out of this.
The public is on soma. They're drinking the sodium fluoride and all the other chemicals in the water that all the mainline studies admit causes cancer, brain damage, 20-point on average IQ reduction in children. And then we have all these UN documents and others from 30, 40 years ago saying we will engineer the food supply to incrementally sterilize people. In fact, I have this book, Eco Science, written by the current White House science czar. And in there he says, we've got to engineer the water supply, the food supply, to slowly and incrementally sterilize people.
The elitists of the world want to restrict the world population. They think that we're using up too many of their natural resources.
And that's from fear? Is that why, or is it just the psychopathic mind?
Well, they do have a lot of fearful control freaks that also serve them, but at the very top, they're psychos.
Prince Philip has said that if he, when he dies, he hopes to be reincarnated and come back as a virus so that he can eliminate large segments of the worst population.
And you have a lot of elites inbreeding. When you have inbreeding, psychopathic tendencies, megalomania tends to manifest. You notice these elite families have been inbreeding for centuries in Europe, thousands of years total.
If you read Bertrand Russell's book, The Impact of Science on Society, written in 1953, he talks about population control.
Falling fertility, how population problem is solving itself.
That's just in The
Economist, and it says fertility's falling astonishingly fast, and that's bringing big benefits. Less people's good.
Jacques Cousteau is quoted as saying there are just too many people on Earth. We're going to have to eliminate 350,000 people a day.
Here's all these studies admitting that just this one type of GMO corn from Monsanto that has pesticide that grows naturally in it, so if bugs eat it, they die, is causing liver failure in all the mammals they tested on, massive death, and it's still, well, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, because they can't understand it. They can't believe someone's doing it on purpose.
It took me a long time to begin to understand this, to begin to understand what motivates the people, the Ted Turners of this world, the George Soroses, the Rockefellers, the Oprah Winfreys, the Bill and Melinda Gates, Warren Buffett.
Bayer Pharmaceutical for over a decade knowingly allowed for HIV to be in all their factor 8 and hepatitis killing over 1 million people all over the world.
Why are they encouraging homosexuality? Because homosexuals don't reproduce. Because the male homosexual dies at a young age. 1 in 3 lesbians gets breast carcinoma and they die early, but they never tell them there.
And then I said to the reporter, I said, see, they're killing us, they know. And he says, but they didn't mean to.
The sperm count all throughout the world has fallen 50% in the last 40 years. Why?
What the hell are you talking about?
They are poisoning our people. There is a population control agenda. There really are people who want to kill off the majority of the people in the world.
Okay, fine. None of them went to prison. Why is that okay? I've got all these textbooks where they're doing it to it. That's what I'm angry about, Dean Haglund.
I love that.
And we've got to get angry like humans. Stay there. Again, if you want to talk, go ahead and talk.
No, this is perfect.
You're thinking that there is a reasonable explanation for all these, again, what occurs as random incidences. So there's this reasonable explanation, and the explanation is that there are these power-hungry, we could either join them, we could fight them, but there is an unknown enemy. And it's also, there's a lot of projection.
Yeah, that's right. You better get out of town. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you run.
Nobody knows how to get out of the trouble we're in because nobody understands how it works.
Right. Because there's a whole nother thing that's
It's a whole
invisible.
different world out there that you don't understand.
We don't say the Vatican runs it all, or Jews run it all, or Seventh-day Adventists are bad and run it all, or Scientologists run it all.
And I can't learn it because...
You're never going to learn.
Unless I go to your website.
We go to the real history. Powerful guilds of psychopaths and criminal networks of every race, religion, and group at the top meet, and sometimes they fight with each other, but they meet and discuss the rules, like in The Godfather, a mafia commission meeting.
People cannot relate to the things I talk about because, for a very good reason, most of the subjects which I deal with have nothing to do with football.
And then they've got our heroes for us, not people that stand up against tyranny. No, it's got to be Colt McCoy.
You know, Christians will tell you that we did not evolve from monkeys.
Right.
And I say, of course we didn't evolve from monkeys. We're evolving into monkeys.
I'm nothing special, okay? It's just that I studied them so long and really read so many of their own source documents, their own manuals, their own reports, their own systems. And then it just verifies what I already instinctively knew.
We're not the same country anymore. We're under a new form of government.
Well, and I think there's a sense that there's a change going on, but nobody can put their finger on it because...
Right. I can put my finger on it right now.
Right.
I was talking about it back in 1990s.
When one stares into the abyss, be careful you don't turn into the abyss. But the good news is I have turned into the abyss, but I'm still a good guy and have my humanity. But I am now literally, psychologically, mentally, I am able to, anytime I want, look into things with their perspective and their grand architecture. So now I'm so high up in my study of it that I'm what they would call illuminated. And I've had elitists tell me that because now I am above the fog.
Right.
I now see 1,000 miles.
For 1,000 years, there will never be a time when mankind will ever be free again. We have one shot at it in 6,000 years, and we screwed it up.
A nation that turns its back on its Christian heritage can expect God to turn his back on that nation, and it's coming.
The entire human race has lost its way. We are now in the grips of the most tyrannical, despotic police state on the earth. All nations are under it.
What is going on?
Well, apparently I was speeding, wasn't I?
Just a little bit.
I'm sorry. What did you clock me at?
97.
Ah, dear.
The globalists traffic in the souls of men. And I traffic in trying to save those souls from being pre-programmed and never really flourishing.
At least those people who listen to our program, at least a few of them are making preparations for the very really difficult period that lies ahead. And I fear that the war is coming. It's not a matter of if, but when and how soon.
The whole world is a giant mad scientist laboratory where they're trying to harness and dominate and dehumanize humanity because they're threatened by that dynamic human spirit. They hate it. They want to destroy it.
That's where that evil comes from?
Went to break.
Behind everything going on are these powerful spiritual forces.
There is a higher intellectual, spiritual dimension to life.
So this idea of a spiritual force is a dark spiritual force.
Very, very dark and sinister spiritual force. And my book, Brotherhood of Darkness, probably is the primer.
Certain prophets, seers, gurus, whatever, they tune into something that's out there.
We tell people about this other dimension, and if you contact that dimension, you can get great wealth and fame and fortune, but of course you do at the risk of your eternal soul. And we tell people, understand it's there and avoid it like the plague.
Have you heard anything about conspiracy to suppress anything about quantum consciousness?
Some people can be open to all this information. Other people shut themselves off to even any new information that would possibly change.
It takes an enormous amount of courage to open ourselves to new information. Most people read books that agree with what they already think, and what they remember from those books are things they already knew.
If you haven't read Dan Brown's book, I recommend you do. He talks about this other force that's there. And then he talks about the organizations on noetic sciences, where you can actually learn how to tap into this other generation and this supernatural force.
Well, I think it's always important to recognize that Dan Brown is a fiction writer, and he writes about fiction. But the stories and the studies that he portrays in the book, many of them are true. Many of them are very close to being exactly out of one of our journal articles.
Oh, really?
And Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, was part and parcel of this movement.
Looking out that portal into the vastness of space and seeing planet Earth suspended there in all its pristine beauty. And he had kind of two experiences. One was a deep sense of unity, a sense of oneness with all of the universe. But he also had a real deep experience of pain, that as citizens of Spaceship Earth, we suffer, and that the cause of our suffering isn't anything inherent in this beautiful, pristine globe, but that it comes from within us and through our consciousness and our worldview. And so it was his epiphany that perhaps the greatest frontier wasn't outer space, but really inner space. We explore the powers and potentials of consciousness through basic science. We're interested in looking at the potential reaches of consciousness. Does prayer heal, or can intention be directed at a distance towards somebody's physical well-being, and can that be measured?
I was at Stanford. I was a Stanford professor from 64 till 98. I'm a physicist by background in the area of materials. After reading the book, Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain, I had this compelling internal question. How might the universe be constructed to allow this crazy seeming kind of stuff naturally coexist with the orthodox science I was doing with my PhD students every day? And the unstated assumption since the days of Descartes by orthodox science has been that no human qualities of consciousness, intention, emotion, mind, or spirit can significantly influence a well-designed target experiment in physical reality.
We often feel resistance from mainstream materialist scientists who say, it isn't even valid to explore consciousness. Consciousness isn't
nothing more than an epiphenomenon or a byproduct of the brain. It has no place in scientific inquiry.
Orthodox science doesn't really seek truth about nature. It seeks internal self-consistency with respect to a reference frame that they hold about nature.
And that reference frame has come from what?
That reference frame has come from the study of space and time.
Well, what we were able to do is show that there were significant correlations between the intention of the healthy partner and the physiology of the distant cancer patient, as well as to see that there were correlations between the physiologies of both parties.
So the cancer patient was influencing the healthy?
Well, they were correlated. They were interconnected in some way. So you can't say that it's causal. You can say it's correlational. And that's the difference between the kind of Newtonian paradigm and the quantum paradigm.
Right.
The idea that space and causality is restricted to some kind of physical proximal relationship is expanded to the whole of the universe.
I'm perceiving it as a linear unrolling.
Right. And it's not.
Time, as we understand it unfolding, becomes sort of inverted, so that the arrow of time is not just in one direction, it can go backward and forward.
I can jump then into any...
Well, it appears. I mean, let's be clear. I haven't done all those experiments yet. I just said something to get your attention. But I don't really...
Oh, well, it worked.
I don't...
This just begins to reveal that the universe is much more interesting than, what 400 years of science has allowed us to understand.
We imprinted consciousness into a little electronic box.
Wow.
And then we used the electronic box. We switched it on in a space where we were gathering background data, experimental data, and it had a specific intention. We did it from a deep meditative state, 4 people. We have an unimprinted device and an imprinted device. We could separate them by 100 meters, turn them off electrically, and in 3 to 5 days, the unimprinted device picked up the imprint. Okay? And it could influence an experiment just the way this other one could. But the boxes were off electrically. So there was no information transfer via electromagnetic radiation that we know of.
Right.
Right.
So therefore...
Therefore, there has to be another communication channel in the universe that Orthodox science is not aware of.
As we get into this moment of profound acceleration and this engagement of difference, you find there are kind of responses, maybe 3 principal responses. One is intolerance, it's conflict. My view is better than yours, and I become more kind of fundamentalist and embedded in my perspective and more rigid. And then on the other hand, you have these New Age kind of advocates who believe so strongly in all of these, powers and potentials that they become dogmatic. Our job has really been to kind of navigate between those and try to find ways of calibrating truth systems, recognizing multiple ways of knowing. There is a way of engaging life that allows a generosity to emerge as you try to experience the world from another person's perspective.
Here's an experiment in which the man creates glasses in which you put on and you see things upside down. And that, of course, is very strange for individuals. But if they keep the glasses on, then after the order of 2 to 3 weeks, suddenly flip, with the glasses on, they see everything right side up. Because the people believe that others should be walking right side up. If you take the glasses off, flip, you see things upside down. Because you've created what appears to be an inversion mirror somewhere in the brain structure.
Right, it's rewired itself.
It's to a degree.
There are ways in which our brain is actually hardwired to continue to support our pre-existing beliefs and to resist any new information. And these tests over and over again show that we are very capable of missing a huge piece right in the middle of our screen because we're attending to the activities on the periphery.
And so if you leave the glasses off for the order of 2 to 3 weeks, and it's different, the timing for different individuals, but flip, you see everything right side up.
We're all prone to being hardwired to seeing those things where we place our attention and being able to see things with our attention that we believe to be there.
It's real, as much as real can be real. Okay?
Okay, should we talk about that for a bit? real as much as real can be real.
Well, the issue is
we apply meaning to our real.
We apply meaning to it. Yes,
right.
We give meaning to things, and to us they're real. What we give meaning to, we become.
I see.
And the more in experiments, the more you condition a space with your meaning, the more it becomes.
But then isn't that an arbitrary application?
Of course it is. But that's what our growth is. That's why our potential is so great.
The powers and potentials of our minds to influence our bodies. That you can take an inert substance, a placebo, and not only that it causes changes in your body, but it knows the exact cascade of changes in the body that are going to trigger the particular need that your body has in that moment.
About 1980, when people did, in the medical community, did double-blind randomized trial experiments, the placebo effect was almost zero. Okay?
Right.
By 2000, it was about 75%.
It's been the area that has been most excluded from scientific research because it was the kind of control condition.
Right.
It's the thing you want to get rid of. I say invite it in so that we can have a more full understanding of where is it within us that we can enhance our own innate healing capacities.
All of science is subjective.
But isn't there a universal truth that science is going for?
Perhaps the universal truth is what makes us subjective.
Okay, you just blew my mind.
If you think you're confused, that's the right position to be in because it's confusing. It's confusing that there's so much conflicting information about whatever the topic is. How do you begin to discriminate?
There's no overwhelming truth, though.
I don't think so. I
No.
don't think there's an objective truth. I think all truth is subjective.
Oh, interesting. So everything's true for everyone, but yes.
Relatively to our perception.
I
Very
like that.
chaotic, huh?
That is chaotic.
To say that there aren't conspiracies, to say that there aren't reasons to feel that people may be organizing to influence or to manipulate us would be naive. I mean, all you have to do is look at the history of advertising to see that there have been enormous amounts of money dedicated to changing the way we think or priming us to have a new need that we never knew we had. On the other hand, I think that we can get carried away with the ways in which we give up our power to other people. We have a role to play in how we interpret our world and our experience. And that power lies within us, and it can't be given to anyone else. And if, in fact, you want to motivate your life by feeling fear and constriction and paranoia, those are choices people can make.
I see the work as an expression of love.
Oh, that's rare coming from a scientist.
Well, it shouldn't be. We're all part of a larger one. And we're brothers and sisters to each other.
Right.
And we're students and teachers to each other. I mean, our strength is in our diversity.
It's in that meeting of difference, whether it's the inner and the outer or the material and the spiritual, it's in that meeting that new questions can arise and new methodologies can emerge and ultimately then new understandings of who we are and what we're capable of becoming will take form.
I look at this outside of us as just a classroom, created for our development. Our spiritual parents dressed us in these bio bodysuits, put us in this playpen that we call a universe in order to grow in coherence, in order to develop our gifts of intentionality, and in order to become what we were intended to become, which is co-creators with our spiritual parents.
Play with paradox, play with riddles, play with jokes. Jokes are a great way of inverting something that you take for granted and see it from a different point of view.
That's what the adventure is all about, to learn to become a creator, a co-creator. And you guys are doing that.
Right.
You are reducing the disorder in this world. And in so doing, you're creating, restoring some of the potential to this world.
Artists are people who are seeking to see things in a different way. So being able to draw on the artist within us becomes a very powerful tool for people as they seek to make the kinds of changes that are really important to survival in the 21st century. This is a very different world than it was.
Yeah, last year we did our play Reinventing Tesla.
The biography of Nicola Nicola?
In a certain regard, we also wanted to go and explore all of the historical information surrounding Tesla's life and work.
Yeah.
So this gave us an opportunity to be able to sort through some of the myths that you've probably already encountered.
Already encountered, yes. Well, you know, I actually made a Tesla coil in grade 9. We won a gold medal in the provincial science fair.
You Google Tesla, there's a million rabbit holes to fall down. And because there's a lot of gray area between fact and fiction, it's a touchy, dangerous subject when trying to try to say this is the man and this is what he did.
One of our problems with the Tesla story is everybody says, well, he was a mad scientist and he was, unjustly served and blah, blah, blah. But in 1900, Tesla was the most famous man on the planet and the wealthiest.
I didn't know that.
Sure, he cracked the code. He's the hottest young kid. He creates it, hits it big, he electrifies the world. He's that guy. Tesla invents all of these primary technologies that make these things happen.
He talks about these,
He talks about this
device.
A handheld device that can communicate and
You can talk to anybody instantaneously all over the planet. You can hear music instantaneously. You can even see images.
But that was the idea of free energy, that wirelessly you could communicate with electrical charge.
Energy and communications can be wirelessly transmitted, was his claim.
So when he died in the Hotel New Yorker, he had all of these trunks, 60 some odd trunks in his personal rooms. When he left the Waldorf Astoria, he left the Waldorf and there were things in the basement there that were held in safekeeping.
In lieu of payment.
In lieu of payment. Oh, I see.
When he died, there was stuff scattered all over New York City, stuff that he had stored.
That is so weird that he was penniless. Didn't he patent all this stuff?
That's true. So you make the thing and you patent the thing, but you're just a couple of guys in your garage.
Right.
So a giant multinational conglomerate, not unlike General Edison turned General Electric, might take said patent, go and make their own version of said device, and then go and put those out in a million places around the world. Now, as a small mom and pop, there's no way that you can fight against that.
Frequently, he'd come up with something, and as soon as he knew in his mind that it worked, he'd set it aside and go on to the next thing. It was about the continuous journey to try to get to his ultimate goal.
Which was?
Well, he claimed free power, wireless power for the planet.
The guys that owned all the copper, for example, the copper mines, the copper, wire making companies, and all of the infrastructure that we would use to generate and transmit electricity.
Yeah.
Those cats, the more copper you sell, the more money you make.
Right.
So our voltage in the States is 120, 240, as opposed to 240 and above, which is overseas everywhere else in the globe.
Right.
That's just because you need more copper. If you have a lower voltage, you need thicker cables. The thicker the cable, the more money I make. Of course, that's what we're going to do.
Kidding me?
Yeah, there's no conspiracy. It's just business.
You know, we've been quoting you on the whole documentary for the longest time.
Have you?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah, because it's our favorite thing is it's not so much a conspiracy as business as usual.
Sure. There's some brilliant things out there, things that would change the world, technologies that would enable us, and they ain't being used. And why? Well, it's business as usual. So, for example, the Orgonite experiment was nothing more than a resin metal composite with a crystal inside. Found some research on Quebec Orgon site that showed this causing large germination in seeds. My neighbor, he has a scientific background. He did the obvious thing where you have a control group. It's totally organic, 2 parts of the allotment, first-time grower. What came out was vegetables that were very large, turnips the size of melons. My theory is it's like a circuit that translates energy into something else, a beneficial energy.
Oh, cool.
And
then
the whole range of psychological effects on people as well, but mainly I concentrate on the giant vegetables because it's physical effects you can see and eat. It's not subjective, it's not an anecdote. It's saying, look, giant vegetables, big, small, Sesame Street. Which one came from where? For all I know, the Orgonite is purely a tool to get intention working. We are getting results, and consistent results.
And what's the psychological effects? My headache goes away or something?
I don't know. People have said you put it underneath your pillow, you'll get the most lucid dreams ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Can I keep this one?
Yep.
You see then, we as a society picking up Tesla's ideas from 100 years ago.
Absolutely. We're just catching up now to where he had already achieved success.
Niagara Falls is a perfect example of clean energy in harmony with nature. I mean, his first giant achievement with Westinghouse. And to this day, it still works as,
There's a turbine there?
A turbine there. There's turbines on both the American side and the Canadian side. You're talking about 100 years of technology still running today, the same system. It's like 94% efficient.
There's a an Irish dentist who came up with a process whereby you apply pressurized ozone over your teeth. It takes about 45 seconds. It kills the bacteria that causes tooth decay. It cleans the tooth so well that you can actually regrow your teeth. Oh, did I mention it was really cheap and takes about a minute to apply and would revolutionize dentistry and would replace 95% of dentistry, including root canals.
It seems like now is a really important time in the history of energy to talk about Tesla and Tesla's story. Our goal in creating the play and the movie from the play was to be able to communicate this idea of efficiency and technology in harmony with nature.
Ozone kills things that make you ill on your tooth. Doesn't work anywhere else in your body. And then you start looking into it and finding a paper trail. I mean, Medizone in New York City did a trial with the Canadian Department of Defense on HIV back in the early 90s. And they had results, and then things were done, and you never heard from it again. Someone dying in cancer is worth at least $500,000, if not a lot more. So the last thing you want is someone coming along with ozone, dental treatment, the Bob Beck patent, the Cali, something that grows giant vegetables that costs fuck all.
Tesla in 1900 said, if we use fuel to get our power, we are living on our capital and exhausting it rapidly. This method is barbarous and wantonly wasteful in the interests of coming generations. He said, look at the world in this way. And when you look at the world that way, everything changes. It's a different way of seeing the interconnectedness of all things and the way that there's a finite amount of resources and that we all have to get along to learn how to use them so that we can all live and be happy.
You're not allowed to use cure.
Right.
That is reserved by the high priests, the high Latin-speaking priests of medicine.
Right. You use treatment.
Yeah.
There's treatments, but there's no cures.
No, we don't want to do true cures. Not enough money in cures.
That's why we're the guys that pick up the Tesla banner and say, yes, remember to do the right thing for the rest of the species, because it's one tiny little place.
It's a placebo effect. Yeah, but it's still an effect.
Right.
So get rid of the word placebo and saying, no, this is the effect and this is how it's happening.
Okay, so get rid of the word conspiracy.
And use the word business.
Business.
Yeah, every corporation is a conspiracy, if you look at it. It's a pyramid structure.
Yeah.
Where the orders come down from the top. And this is how conspiracies work. This is how they get away with it. This is, I think people need to know this.
I have a pyramid scheme going on. I believe if you feel differently about yourself and accept all the parts of you, everybody you meet will change. I really mean that there is a ripple out effect. As I always say, we're the stone thrown in the middle of the pond.
Welcome to Chicago.
Indeed, it's London.
London, right? This has been a long year, hasn't it?
We're often referred to as the 51st state because we're so happy to go along with anything that Washington comes up with. And a lot of Labour politicians are guilty of this as they go to the States and on Kennedy scholarships, etc., and they meet the right people and they've just absolutely been infatuated. They think this is it, this is Nirvana. You know, what a wonderful, amazing country. Let's bring home the same ideas.
The idea that the British are kowtowing to America is also then placed in America as we are kowtowing. We're becoming the colony of Britain.
The idea of the New World Order and the United States being taken over by the United Nations. And I thought, but it's not about the New World Order when America's secondary to it. It's about the order of the New World as opposed to the order of the Old World. Because after the order of the Old World, which is Europe and the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union collapsed, and Europe was thinking, what are we going to do? And suddenly the United States sat supreme, and we are the New World, so it's our order.
The film The Lone Gunman was aired in March 2001 on Fox Television. Strangely similar to 9/11, which happened a few months later. Its first episode had a passenger airline hijacked by remote control and flown towards the World Trade Center.
When we were on a panel in Berlin and they asked, what are your favorite conspiracy theories? I said this idea that there are artists, there are storytellers used as mouthpieces of the Illuminati. And now, after hearing it so much and hearing how pervasive this is, it negates the work that artists do. It negates their intuition, it negates their conscious connection to the collective unconscious, and it negates the fact that it's something that we all have, which is the ability to tap into what is going on in our collective.
Buyers, your flight's going to make an unscheduled stop in exactly 22 minutes.
Corner of Liberty and Washington, Lower Manhattan.
World Trade Center.
They're going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center.
It just threw you because
Yeah.
we'd just done something that was precisely that, except the plane missed.
Then Condoleezza Rice going, no one had ever predicted. Nobody said, how could we have possibly thought this would happen? Nobody, I'm like, hello, it was our pilot. What do you mean nobody?
So that freaked everybody out. And it freaked out the writers too, oddly enough, because they are like, well, wait a second. Now, this shifts everything that we've been doing. But we tapped into something that we don't know about.
And creating it. Are you willing it enough? Are you believing it enough that it can actually happen? And getting enough people to believe it with you.
It wasn't just that we knew it was going to happen. It's that we knew it was going to happen because we did it.
Operation Gladio was an exercise in the 1970s and 1980s of units, cell units that had been left over after World War II to provide resistance against any incoming Soviet invasion. And in order to justify their continued existence and funding and arming, they actually started carrying out terrorist attacks across Italy and blaming it on the far left. And this has actually happened. This has been, documented and certified. This is kind of a horrendous true story of false flag operations carried out by people who are supposed to be acting in our defense.
We don't totally agree on the reasoning, the momentum behind it, but we do agree on the fact that there was something going on that was not what was actually presented to us.
And we made sure to vilify people in Arab nations, people who are living on top of oil, the same way we vilified the Russians a long time ago and the communists and whatever. We made those the enemy, those people the enemy.
Right.
So that we could get everybody to rally together and not stop and say, wait a minute.
And these buildings were massive steel, grid of steel wrapped around both towers. 47 massive steel columns interlocked with each other through the entire height of the building. Every floor was made of steel. You want to believe that these towers turned themselves into powder in 10 seconds. That's 110 floors gone in 10 seconds.
My eyes don't lie. I saw implosions. It's all MOF, matter of fact, that two planes by themselves did not cause 16 acres of damage. It just didn't happen.
See, and what I think is it's just like an earthquake or a bomb. The vibration alone of that impact would create literally a core shaking situation that would bring down exactly that many structures in exactly that radius.
There's a great guy from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, David Chandler, and he puts out videos that really point out some obvious problems with what we're looking at, and that it has to be explosives are being used.
I understand also that those architects and engineers in 9/11 also focus on Building 7.
The television is hiding Building 7 from you. They don't want you to see Building 7. Because they know if you see Building 7 coming down, you'll know that 9/11 was an inside job. The building came straight down in 6.5 seconds. It's an obvious controlled demolition. You've seen it before. You know what it is. It's an obvious controlled demolition.
There is part of me that believes this was just a sadly well-executed plan by a bunch of fanatics who really, who did this and the government had nothing to do with it,
Right.
whatever.
So you can balance both that truth and...
I can't balance anything. I can completely go this way and then completely go that way. The only thing the only thing is in the subsequent actions like carpet bombing Iraq and whatever.
Right.
I can't see that as
600,000 Iraqi civilians died.
oh, it's
that any?
mass murder. This is crime.
Nobody talks about it.
No one touched it.
So will ever 9/11 and all these things, will that truth ever come out?
Well, if 80% of the people recognize that 9/11 was an inside job, whether or not there's an investigation, then that's probably a good thing. They'll be less likely to be conned into believe in another attack.
We look through a tiny little slit we call consciousness, and it's barely a glimpse at what is going on inside.
9/11, it's the greatest portal into truth. It just jolts people into, recognizing that there's a lot going on.
Right. And that you use that as a jumping point to all these other...
Yeah, I mean, people use that as a jumping point for their own search for truth. I try not to hit anyone with everything at once, because then they'll just think, oh, this guy thinks everything's a conspiracy. And even if everything is a conspiracy.
The work that I'm interested in is a constant diving down into the ocean. Forget the pool, the ocean. down to the bottom to see what gold can I bring up from the bottom? What can I find out about myself that I never knew?
I wrote a novel, and a sci-fi novel, as it really is, for two reasons. One of them, some ideas I've come to realize are so extraordinary and so out there that the only way you can really present them is as fiction.
Right.
That's the only way that will actually get past the gatekeeper. The second reason was ayahuasca in the jungles of Peru, which gave me the story. I had a series of powerful visions under the influence of ayahuasca.
I asked the plant to help me resolve just old issues. You know?
Right.
And so it starts off, and I'm floating in like sort of the upper level of this like cathedral, right? Like all the domes and stuff at the top.
Uh-huh.
And it's like blue with like gold designs of like leaves and calligraphy and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, this is like a temple of myself.
The name of our film is?
The truth is out there.
But it really isn't. The truth is in here.
So if
the truth is always in here. And out there is only a reflection of in here. From my perspective, there is no one out there. There are no others. These are shards of glass and mirror reflecting ourself back to us.
I'm not the kind of person, if I see someone getting attacked on the street, I can just watch it happen. I have to stop it.
Right. Have you done that?
No.
Labradorite connects with the interdimensional beings and our space family.
Right.
I've been sending a lot to Norway.
For the spiral thing?
Oh my God, you would not believe. That opened up a portal.
Thousands of Norwegians bombarded the Meteorological Institute to ask what that light could have possibly been.
The people of Norway are having incredible experiences. They are becoming so awake.
I'm more optimistic than I've ever been before that the great sleeping giant of America is beginning to awaken, and that spirit which made America unique is beginning to once again return to this country. I just hope and pray we have time.
I want to be free of the rock. I want to be free of the bankers. I want to be free, it's a great example, but if I have a flying saucer and I don't pay my taxes and I fly away, where are you going to find me? There's a whole universe out there. You can't police the universe. And that's the reason they don't want us to have our own flying saucers. Because they can't catch you. You're too fast. There's too many.
Wouldn't they have the exact same vehicle then to chase you down?
Good question. Like the hot rods, the police have the best cars.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, okay, forget that idea then. They can catch you. But you got a flying saucer.
I'm concerned about my river, the Shuswap River. I want the river to be clean. I want it to flow. I want to make sure that we have good, clean water here. And so I do have an interest in that sort of things, and I can still kind of do that being out here. We're planning on going to a community meeting in 4 days that's concerned about the parks, the parkland in our area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're certainly motivated for that sort of thing.
Right.
I don't see any big walls. I don't see big walls. It's just a long driveway. There's no walls.
There's no walls.
It's true. I always thought that when I was out of the room, everybody removed their skin and were just skeletons, that was their true form.
Did you?
Yeah, and then when I came back, they magically put their skin back on.
How old were you when you thought that?
4 or 5, somewhere in there.
See, and you think it's a coinkadinky that you ended up on the X-Files? Hello?
Oh, that's interesting. I never put that together before.
The truth
to know, 'cause the truth is out there. You want to know, 'cause the truth is out there. We want to know, 'cause the truth is out there. Take the fall, while you take our mind. Could life be all of what we just can't find? But I know you turn out the lights, slip out the window. You start the fight, so we all will let go. If we were right, then the proof will not show. You want to know, 'cause the truth is out there.
In the summer 1990, when the heat was quite intense, I draw to your attention a chain of strange events. Things have happened to me and to some of my best friends. A phenomena is happening and the mystery never ends. I remember reading somewhere of a circle in the corn. It appeared due west of where I live and just before the dawn. A compelling feeling told me that I really had to go, so I left home fairly quickly and drove 40 miles or so. As I reached the Vale of Pewsey and the White Horse on the hill, the sight I saw beneath me gave my bones a sudden chill. There stretched out below me, 60 meters down the field, a pictogram of many shapes. What secrets would it yield? Since then I've seen so many, and I've walked in quite a few, and I've the strangest feeling that the patterns hold the clue. I've heard so many answers from folks who think they know, but the truth to this enigma unfolds very, very slow. We must draw on all conclusions and don't laugh at anyone, because the answer is in all of us who live beneath the sun. Our mother has a problem, and a problem we have made, and she tries to tell us slowly in the corn she gently lays. Younger brothers do not listen, and the time is getting short. So mother has to frighten us, but as a last resort, she'll conjure up the evil winds that will move the 7 seas and move the molten mountains and bring countries to their knees. Then we shall see a vision like the world has never seen. Something will come with light and sound to end our nightmare dream. From that day on, the world will change in every way we know, and those that come will help us all to make the whole world grow. So little men of power, who've never got things right and are probably laughing at this now, will get the biggest fright. Your money will mean nothing, and power's not the key. The answer's simply balance and perfect harmony.
Wow. Thank you very much, Reg.
Quite all right.
Totally appreciate it.
Anytime.